Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another Woodbrew video. In this week's video, I'm going to be answering a very commonly asked question, and that is how to create and use an SVG file with your X-Carve. And to do so, I'm going to be creating this really cool US map for Molly's Christmas present. Before we get started on this project, because of the New Year's and everything, I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory behind this project before we get started. If you don't really care about it, just skip to the time code that's listed right here, and this project will get started. The reason for making this board is so that Molly can color in all of the states that she's been to, hang it on her wall, and every day she wakes up, she can look at that wall and see what she's accomplished and really be motivated to continue pursuing her dreams. I want to rewind a bit and talk about Molly and I's beginning. We haven't talked much about that on the channel, and many of you ask us all the time, so here we go. Molly and I are both 21 years old, I think. Am I 22? Anyway, Molly's 21, I'm 22. Right? Or is Molly 22? I don't know how old we are. Alright, I have like a really crazy question. I'm recording this video right now, and I just said our ages, and I said we were both 21, and I know we're not both 21, so are we both 22, or am I 22 and you're 21?
Are you serious?
I have no idea how old I am.
What?
I'm having, like, I seriously have no idea right now. It'd be a 50-50 shot. I know I'm 22, I think. Right? I'm 22.
Yes,
wait, but are you 20?
22.
But are you 22 or are you 21?
No. Yes.
Oh, we're both 22.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Okay, bye.
Can't wait to see that clip.
So we've been dating for 5 to 6 years, somewhere in between there, and we met our sophomore year of high school. And when we were in high school, we were your very typical high school kids, you know, looking at colleges and trying to make good grades so that we could get into the college of our dreams and, you know, take on that student loan and do all those sorts of things. That just was second nature. That's what we've been told our entire lives. I do want to end this conversation saying that college is a very, very good thing, and I recommend everybody doing it, with the one caveat as make sure you're going for what you actually love to do. That's the one caveat. So for me, I was looking at things that I wanted to do, and the only thing relatable to making was mechanical engineering. It's what 95% of the other guys I knew were doing. And the one thing that stopped me from doing that was I went and I actually watched somebody do a mechanical engineering job in our area. And what that meant was they basically sat behind a computer all day, modeled a singular part to a massive machine, and that's what their life was. And found out very quickly that's not the thing for me at all. So what Molly and I did was we went to a local community college first, and we just kind of started stumbling through school, I guess you could say, taking all of our basics and everything like that. We had like zero money at all, and we started a little furniture restoration business on the side after picking up a piece of furniture on the side of the street, and that was our way to make a little bit of extra money. Fast forward about a year, all of that ended up turning into what we're doing now. But the whole point of the story is that we definitely came from the mindset at the beginning of go to college, get a degree, buy a house, settle down, the whole 9 yards. If there's one thing that this whole journey has taught us, is go the complete opposite way of what society tells you to do. Because I guarantee you, you will be so much happier. And that doesn't mean don't go to college. It doesn't mean not work from somebody. What it means is after high school, when you have zero experience in any life, you think you know a lot, but you absolutely know nothing. Get out in the world for a year or two, maybe even 3 or 4, and figure out what your passion is if you don't know already. And instead of trying to follow that cliche path that everyone is sometimes even forced into, try to figure out a way to follow your passion. Because at the end of the day, material things mean nothing and experiences mean everything. I'll end with that, and what I really want people to get from this is hopefully they can either pass this on to their children or some of the younger audience can take from this. We've been down the path of basically get the highest paying job we're capable of so that we can fulfill our dreams. And that does work for some people, but what you need to realize is that 70% of your time is going to be spent doing something that you don't enjoy, so that 30% of the time you can do what you enjoy. So if there's any way possible for you to turn your passion into a career, I highly recommend that you go for it. And it doesn't matter if you make half the amount of money as the other job, because 70% of your time is spent doing something you love and enjoy. And that's inspiring. So that's the whole reason for doing this project. It's to hopefully encourage Molly to every day when she wakes up to be able to envision that dream down the road, because when you're starting out, it's tough, and any bit of encouragement helps. So let's get on with the build. So let's get started learning more about SVG files and how to use them with the X-Carve. Now there are actually two ways we can get an SVG file. We can search online for a royalty-free SVG, or we can create our own. This first example is me using a pre-made SVG file of the US map. SVG files are really great because they can be scaled up or down without losing any quality. I'm using Adobe Illustrator and I have set the page to 12 by 16, which is the exact size I want the finished piece to be. As you can see, this file has all the states as separate shapes, but it's a little too detailed for what I need. I am selecting a large area and then shift clicking to deselect the state outlines and then deleting all the extra little details. I went through the whole map and deleted all the little details. Once completed, I clicked File, Export, and selected SVG from the drop-down menu. Now I headed over to X-Carve software called Easel. You can click Import and then select SVG file. After playing around with this for a while, I wasn't liking the results. I really wanted the states to be inset and not just an outline carved around them, so I headed back to Adobe Illustrator. First I select Object on the top bar, then Path, and finally Offset Path. After thinking on what I wanted the gap to be between the states, I settled on 1/8 of an inch, but I needed to input -1/16 of an inch in order to achieve that 1/8 inch gap. After selecting OK, you can see every state has a path 1/16 of an inch inside itself. And now I need to delete the outside path on all the states to reveal that gap. Once I was done, I exported the file again as an SVG and imported it into Easel. This provided a much better result, and I ended up using an 1/8 inch end mill to rough out the shape, and then I went back with a 60-degree V-bit to clean everything up. Easel makes seeing how the piece will turn out so much easier than trying to guess with other softwares. It's really great to get that 3D rendering of exactly what it's going to look like with the bits that you're using. If you'd like to add text to anything, you can use the text button on Easel, which makes it super easy. And a little pro tip that I recently found out is if you have text and you want to change the font, all you need to do is select the text, click the shape box, and then at the bottom you can cycle through the fonts really easily. Now before cutting, I wanted to show you how to create an SVG file from an image. You can draw something in Adobe Illustrator and export it, of course, but you can also turn any photo into an SVG file. This means you can get something online, use a photo you took, or even draw something on a piece of paper, scan it in, and then use that file to create an SVG file. The trick lies in a single button called Image Trace. Import your image and select the image. Next, look at the top of the page for the Image Trace button. Simply clicking the button works, but there are other options in the drop-down menu that give you more specific results. In the case of the map, I chose to use Line Art mode, and this simply gathers the lines within the photo. This ended up working really well for this map image. You need to click Expand once the image tracing is done, and then right-click the image and select Ungroup to see the individual parts. With that done, you could simply export this as an SVG file and use it straight on your X-Carve. This can also be used on more intense images though. For example, I traced this image Molly took of Zion National Park, and the results were amazing. Also, shameless plug, Molly is selling her prints now, so if you want to check the link in the description below, you can buy one of her photos from one of our mini adventures. Alright, back to the Zion image. The trick is to go into advanced settings when you're using the image trace on a more intense photo like this. When you're in advanced settings, you can change the color, you can use these sliders to achieve a different look, you can exclude or include as much detail as you want, and it just makes things a lot easier to control the final result, and playing around in there will give you kind of exactly what you need, and every image is going to be different with those sliders. Again, once it's traced, you can expand it and then right click and ungroup it to see all the individual parts. As you can see, the options are endless using this method, and you can get really creative using SVG files with your X-Carve, especially when you start incorporating some images you've taken or images you've drawn. So, with all that done, let's get carving. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this project. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to color any of these in because I think Molly's going to have a blast doing that. Christmas is like 2 weeks away, so it's not going to make it into this video, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions at all, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to answer them. Also, thank you so much, Inventables, for continuing to support our channel. And if you have any questions about the X-Carve, leave them on any of our social medias in the description below. Anything you want, I'm sure we can answer them. It's an amazing machine that really opens up a lot of doors for cool projects like this. Hopefully this kind of inspires you to get out and travel a bit, because it's been some of our fondest memories is getting out on the road and seeing parts of the country, hopefully different parts of the world very soon. I wish you guys a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's, and I really hope you have an amazing start to the first of the year. We've been really slow the end of this year trying to get so much stuff crammed into a short amount of time, but I promise you we're going to be picking up heavy at the beginning of next year. Also, the final project coming out this year is going to be pretty sweet, so stick around for that, and we'll see you next week.